Most of the skills you are learning right now will be entirely irrelevant in a decade. Artificial intelligence is advancing to the point where specialized technical execution is nearly instant. But the actual threat to your livelihood isn't the software itself. It is the way you were conditioned to think about work. We are trained to operate as specialists, to learn one narrow skill, wait for an assignment, and execute it exactly as instructed. When a machine can perform those specialized tasks flawlessly in a fraction of a second, waiting around for someone to give you permission and a set of instructions is a guaranteed path to obsolescence. To understand why we default to this passive mindset, we have to look back to the 1800s. The Industrial Revolution created a sudden, massive demand for a specific type of worker to man these new factory floors. To meet that demand, America adopted the Prussian education model. This system wasn't designed to cultivate independent thought or genuine discovery. It was engineered as a mechanism for mass conformity. Through mandatory attendance, rigid grade levels, and strict testing, the system manufactured exactly what the era required: compliant citizens, obedient soldiers, and well-behaved workers who could follow instructions without questioning them. Conformity is essentially a psychological survival strategy. It is a state of development where your concepts of right and wrong, or success and failure, are handed down to you by your culture rather than discovered through your own investigation. A truly free individual navigates the world by testing reality for themselves. A conformist specialist, on the other hand, relies entirely on a boss or a corporation for both their paycheck and their sense of purpose. If that specific job disappears, their physical and psychological survival is threatened. A socioeconomic structure built to keep people simple, predictable, and easy to categorize works perfectly for an industrial machine, but it falls apart for the individual the moment software can replicate those predictable behaviors for free. The direct counter to this conditioning is a trait called high agency. True agency goes beyond simply taking action toward a goal. It is an undying commitment to iterating without permission, making a mistake, reflecting, adjusting, and trying again without waiting for someone to tell you what to do next. The reason most people struggle to iterate is deeply rooted in a psychological concept known as learned helplessness. This animated diagram represents Seligman's dog experiment. Subjects were placed in a closed environment with unavoidable electric shocks, learning they had no control. Later, the barrier was lowered, offering an easy escape, but the subjects didn't try. They just stayed and endured the pain. Society runs a very similar experiment on us. Through years of schooling and corporate hierarchy, people are trained to believe they have no control over their path. They accept the boredom and anxiety of the default life as normal, failing to realize the pain is actually optional. Developing high agency means actively unlearning that helplessness. You have to start treating your life as one giant experiment, where failing isn't an impossible roadblock or a reason to quit, but simply the data you need to narrow down what actually works. You often hear the phrase, "a jack of all trades is a master of none," usually wielded to discourage people from having multiple interests. But free individuals are actually meant to do many different things. We are naturally designed to be generalists. If you look at visionary leaders or historical figures who achieved massive, outside success, you don't find narrow specialists. You find synthesizers. They build their edge by combining a deep understanding of human nature, design, and multiple disciplines to execute a specific vision. A specialist attaches their entire identity to a specific vessel, like being a master at a single piece of software or a manual drafting technique. A generalist doesn't care if a specific skill evolves or gets replaced, because they are focused entirely on the end goal. When you view the world through this lens, artificial intelligence stops looking like a competitor. AI is a tool, and tools inherently require a master. They need human direction, context, and insight to produce anything of actual value. This is exactly why generalists will outpace everyone else in the coming years. While specialists lose the single specific task they built their identity around, generalists will use AI to adapt, learn much faster, and multiply their ability to bring their ideas into reality. You can think of the modern career path like a rigged video game. You complete the initial tutorial, which is your childhood and schooling, but once you hit level 10, you get permanently stuck. The gameplay becomes a loop of repetitive, mindless tasks. The game isn't fun anymore, but the organizations that run the servers benefit immensely from keeping you exactly where you are. They incentivize you to stay in that stagnant loop because it serves their operational profits. Escaping this loop requires setting your own direction. Most people don't actually know what they want to do with their lives, but they deeply understand what they don't want. You can use that exact friction to map out an aim for your future. Once you have that target, you research how others did it, test their methods, and discard what fails. You build your own customized system based on real-world results, entirely without waiting for a degree or an official credential to tell you you're allowed to try. True mastery only comes when you take that custom process and pass it down to others. The modern internet acts as the ultimate open-world arena for this. You can test your ideas in public, get immediate feedback, and refine your approach in real time. There is a massive panic right now about AI generating thousands of posts, illustrations, and lines of code at the push of a button. People are terrified that human creators no longer stand a chance against that volume. But generating a high volume of material is useless on its own. Raw content has no value without context. If a piece of work lacks a human through line, a cohesive personality, and a specific purpose, it just sinks straight to the bottom of the feed. The harsh reality is this. If you can no longer create art or build a business simply because a machine can now render an image or write a basic script, you were never a creator to begin with. You were merely a technician operating a tool. Specific vessels and isolated skills will always be replaced as technology advances. That is the natural order of progress. But the ability to synthesize information, set your own direction, and act with unyielding agency will always be immune to automation.